Yeah, to me, it's both lack of strategy and the desire to do so many things at once so you can get to a certain point where you think you should be there right now. So you kind of want to rush it. I think the amount of products caused a huge lack of money, energy, time. At some point, I wasn't even illustrating anymore because I was dealing with 5 or 7 manufacturers. So there's so many things you have to figure out with each product that it takes so much time that you're not able to focus on anything. And I don't think I was making anything right. Like I would have had one product with amazing packaging, amazing marketing, amazing manufacturer, but I never gave it space to be that great, amazing thing because I diluted my energy, my time, my money.
Wouldn't it be nice if your art business loved you back? Hi, I'm Stacie Bloomfield. After years of trial and error and late night doodling, I went from being a coffee shop manager to running a vibrant 7-figure art business that I love. And now I'm on a mission to help more artists create an art business that they love too. So I invite you to find a cozy spot, pull out your favorite sketchbook, and listen in. It's never too late to chase your creative dreams. Welcome to the Art Plus Audience podcast.
Hello, hello. Welcome back to another episode of the Art Plus Audience podcast. We're the podcast where we're trying to help you create an art business that loves you back. We're trying to take the fear out of business growth. And really, I just want to talk to real people about their real businesses, their real stories, and how they overcame obstacles so that you can learn from them and maybe avoid some of the same mistakes. Or maybe you'll just hear someone share a story and you'll be like, man, they get me. I'm exactly where they're at. And it's good to know I'm not alone. So today, in order to do that, I'm so excited because I have invited a friend of mine, Sandra Mejia. All right. Sandra is a Colombian-born, Canadian-based illustrator and pattern designer. And remind me where you're at right now.
I'm in Ottawa right now. So like 2 hours away from Montreal, 4 from Toronto drive.
I took my family on the Anne of Green Gables dream vacation a couple of years ago, and we stopped in Montreal first. And so we got to see how beautiful that city is. It's like New York, but really clean. And everyone's like, bonjour, hello. And then we made our way all the way to Prince Edward Island after that. So Canada is beautiful. What brought you to Canada?
Oh, I married a Canadian years ago. So I moved to Canada.
Oh, perfect. Well, that's a good way to do it. I mean, Canada is gorgeous. I am a little jealous. It's beautiful in the summertime. It's quite hot here in Arkansas, but that's not what we're here to talk about is the weather. We're here to talk about art and art business. So, Sandra, I met you, gosh, maybe it was about a year ago because you and I are a part of an online group of artists who create work, and we're trying to help other artists with their careers and help each other in our own business growth. Kat C actually introduced us to each other, and I've loved getting to know you and know your story more. And I just thought maybe you could tell everyone a little bit about your own journey before we dive in.
Yeah, so again, I was born in Colombia and I lived there until 2014 and I had a boring corporate job. I'm a communicator and I specialize in project management. So one day I said like, no, I need to do something creative with my life and I don't know what it is, but I quit my job, took my savings, sold my car, moved to Argentina and enrolled in an advertising class. And very soon I realized that's not what I wanted to do and I wasn't very good at it. So I had so much free time, and Argentina's full of parks and beautiful, like botanical gardens. So I would go and sit there or in a coffee shop and draw, and just for fun. And I kept showing it to my family and friends, and I started putting it everything in a blog just so my family and friends could see it. And then a teacher from university that was now working in TV told me like, oh, can I hire you to make a set illustration for the TV program I'm working on and some illustrations? Like I used to make fashion illustrations and I'm like, what? People pay people to draw? So basically that's like what like everything started. And I'm like, oh my God, yes. And then there wasn't much of a market. This was way back in 2011 in Colombia for illustrations. And I decided to start making my own products and selling them so I could put my illustrations somewhere and sell them. And that's how I started my business.
Oh my gosh, I love your story. Isn't it interesting how it feels like the visibility on illustration as a viable path for artists has like exploded over the past like 10 to 12 years? Haven't you felt that?
Definitely. And now there's so much access to classes and resources and people you can contact. It's amazing.
Well, I love that you were able to kind of find your own way in. And you're like so many other art entrepreneurs that I talk to. You just knew you had to have a way to have a creative life. You didn't know what it would take. But I mean, you did something really gutsy. I mean, you sold everything and you just picked up and moved. And how did you have that faith that it would work out?
Well, I just had this very strong feeling that I was in the wrong place. And I said, anything from here has to be better. I liked the social aspect of my job because I work in nonprofits and I will always love that part. But I knew I wasn't meant to be in an office. And I started getting migraines and then I had vertigo and everything went away the day I quit. So that day I knew I had done the right thing. And I'm like, I'm going to find a way. This is meant to be. And I was like afraid of finding a way. Like, how am I going to do this? But I don't know, just putting myself out there and actually doing what was inside my heart and what I really love to do. Just the path started like coming and like showing itself basically.
Sandra, what do you think it is for some people? Because that story is something I resonate with. When you're in the wrong place, sometimes your body will let you know before your brain
Yes.
knows. I feel that too. In fact, I've just resolved something in my business that had been off, but I couldn't quantify what it was, but it was literally making me sick. And it happens. And why can't we recognize it whenever it's happening? Like, oh, this is a signal that something's off and we need to make a change. What do you think?
Yes, I think the financial part makes you very scared because, like, I had a job where I was probably going to go and be the director of the nonprofit after my boss retired. So I had gone to university and then to like a postgraduate degree. I've had spent so much money in this, so much time, so much effort. And the thought of throwing all that away was like, no, maybe I'm just have a migraine because I don't know, I have a vitamin deficiency or something. And like, you keep like making excuses, but I think the body is so powerful that when it starts like, okay, I'm going to make you really sick, you need to make a decision right now. And I think it's just the fear of the unknown and also of financial stability, which is very important.
Oh, yeah. And, then what happens is let's say you get to the point where you're brave enough to make the leap, and then you make the leap, and then all of a sudden you're just staring at potentially no income at first if you go straight from a full-time job to going all into creativity as your career. And then all of a sudden you're like, "Oh my gosh, I have no safety here, and I'm gonna throw myself into everything and throw everything against the wall and see what sticks," right? Because you're so urgent and desperate to make sure that you didn't make a bad mistake. But then that has consequences too. And that actually is going to lead into what we're going to talk about today, which is something that you and I see a lot with people that we talk to when we're mentoring and coaching is the lack of focus that can happen, especially I think when the risk is high, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So why don't we just dive right into that?
Yes. So definitely you have like a ticking time bomb of, for me, it was like how much savings I have and basically urge to just start making money right away. Like, oh, I need to do this. And you start trying everything you can. I was very lucky. Like, I didn't have kids, and like my family fully supported me, and I had savings. I've always been super careful with like money. So I've always had my savings just in case something happened. And this is what happened. So I still felt the pressure to start making income because this was going to run out, and also because I didn't want to be a failure after all these like people thinking like, oh, did you just throw away all your life's work? So I started after I got paid for that design and there was nothing else. Like, I couldn't find any more companies to hire me because people weren't hiring illustrators like that in Colombia. I decided to put my art on products. So I started with pillows and I started thinking like, oh, maybe I should have something else. So I started making mugs. Oh, and maybe notebooks. And I started making notebooks. And oh, I saw this crossbody bag, so pretty. So I should make that too. And I started making so many products that I didn't realize it back then, but that was such a huge mistake. But it also taught me a lot of things.
So let's talk about when it's a mistake to make a lot of things at first and what you should do instead. Because, people look at my business now. I'm 15 years into running a product based business and I have a cajillion products. And so it's really easy, especially if someone's learning from me, to be like, well, Stacie says to leverage her art, leverage it all over the place. And yes, but with strategy, because for me, I didn't start with a million products. It actually started with like one product that once I made a couple of handmade things and I was like, okay, art prints. I started with art prints. Full disclosure, I don't sell nearly as many art prints now, but I was honing my style and learning to talk about my work and trying to find people who wanted to buy from me. And of course, then I did expand into all these other products. So, what is the point where you think there's too many products or too many things? Like, is it the actual product amount or is it the energy behind it, the rushed decision making? What is it for you?
Yeah, to me, it's both lack of strategy and the desire to do so many things at once so you can get to a certain point where you think you should be there right now. So you kind of want to rush it. So I felt like,
Mm.
oh, if I have this huge line of products, then like I'll be more visible and like people will buy it. And like I was still just experimenting with my style, what you said. I was still honing my art. I was probably like not a good illustrator. I look back on those things and I'm like, oh my God, people bought these. Some of them. Some I still like and like I hold them really close to my heart. But I'm like, yeah, I was still learning. The technical aspect wasn't so great. So I think the amount of products caused a huge lack of money, energy, time. At some point, I wasn't even illustrating anymore because I was dealing with 5 or 7 manufacturers. And because I was experimenting with each manufacturer, I was wasting a lot of money because I would go to somebody that would sew the bags and they'd make a sample. And I'm like, great, let's make 50. And then I'd give them the money and then they weren't as good as the sample. So all that was wasted. And then I had to go look for more and I had to learn printing processes for fabric for bags and then printing processes for mugs or printing processes for this other thing, packaging, labeling, like storage. So there's so many things you have to figure out with each product that it takes so much time that you're not able to focus on anything. And I don't think I was making anything right. Like I would have had one product with amazing packaging, amazing marketing, amazing manufacturer, but I never gave it space to be that great, amazing thing because I diluted my energy, my time, my money.
Ooh, you said something in the middle of that I just want to call out because everything you're saying resonates, especially with what I'm seeing happen in our industry is people are making a lot of choices to dive into so many possibilities because there's a lot of possibilities, but they don't have a strategy. So I'm in a group with this leader. His name is Jeff Walker. A lot of people know him because he teaches about online courses. But he talks about what hope marketing is. And pretty much it is creating something without a strategy and just hoping that people are going to buy it. And how there's so much hope marketing out there where people are just like, okay, I'm going to make all the things and then the business will happen. And it doesn't work that way. You have to have a strategy. And you can't start out having 10 different strategies for 10 different products because first of all, if you're a beginner, you are learning as you go. And like you said, you're diluting your energy. So, what we really try to teach our artists now is like, if you're going to go into products, I want you to at least define like one signature product. What is the one product that you want to be known for? And for us now, it's tea towels. At my business, Gingerbread, we like to say that we have the best tea towels. Now, no one has actually given me an award that says we're the best tea towels, but dag nabbit, I want to be known for tea towels. In having something that you're focused on to become the best at and to understand the process, then allows you to market and sell it so much easier, right?
Definitely. Yes. I don't even create products anymore. You can't, it doesn't mean you're pigeonholed into something. Like it just means like when you solidify that side of your business or that product, then you can move on onto other things. Or at some point it might not even work, but like you gave it your all, which is very different to like I tried a bit. Like so you gave 5% to it. So oh, it didn't work. Yeah. Maybe because you only gave it 5%.
Only gave it 5% instead of giving it your all. So let's talk about then what you did to regain focus. So you were at this place, you'd spent a lot of money, you're manufacturing. There probably was nothing wrong even with the products that you created. But again, without a strategy, you're just sitting on all this inventory. So what did you do and how did you refocus?
Yes. So basically, this is when I moved to Canada. I met somebody that lived here, and I decided it'd be easier for me to move to Canada than for him to move to Colombia. So we got married in Canada, and I moved to BC, and it basically forced me to shift my focus on my business. At that point, I had found my perfect product, which was little cosmetic pouches,
Oh,
and
cute.
I was focusing just on that because they were selling like hotcakes. So that proved me right. I had to focus on something. But it basically changed my whole outcome of my business. So I came to Canada. I couldn't work anywhere because I didn't have a working visa. You get like a sponsorship visa for a certain time that could have been like 2 years. It was only like 8 months because it came really fast. But all this time, I'm like, well, I'm going to try to manufacture products in Canada, but it was so expensive here and there wasn't too many options. So I decided to just start creating patterns to submit to companies because I had learned about art licensing. So I can do this from somewhere. And that became my focus. But again, I was seeing all these people that had spoonflower shops and they had society stick shops. And there was all these avenues. And at the beginning, I started submitting my art to companies and I started a spoonflower shop. And then I started a society stick shop. And I was trying to do all these things. And it never, like, none of these sides of the business really grew because I was doing too much.
Yeah. So let's talk about that for a moment because I feel like, and maybe you see this too, because I mean, I know we both work with a lot of artists now who are trying to kind of find their own path. I think you do some coaching as well. And
Yes.
sometimes I feel like people want busy work and it makes them feel like they're making progress. And so, yes, spoonflower stores aren't necessarily a bad thing, especially if you make it your focus. And yes, having a Redbubble or a Society 6 store isn't a bad thing if you have a strategy for it. But whenever people take their portfolio of art and they just willy-nilly put it on everything, again, misinterpreting what I mean by leverage your art because you need some strategy behind it. Then again, they're like, man, nothing's working for me. And sometimes I would love to know your take. Have you ever done like a time audit or when you were earlier on in your business and you were kind of like trying to figure out what to do? Sometimes I feel like people need to do a time audit of where they're actually putting their energy and how much work they're actually doing towards their goal. Have you ever seen that kind of be a challenge for people?
Definitely. I talked about this in my newsletter last month because I've been using a program. I'm not affiliated with it. It's just called Clockify. And I use it because I work with certain clients on time-based projects when it's like mock-up design and stuff like that. And I decided like, oh, why am I tracking time to see how much these projects take? And I have no idea how much my projects take. Like I can tell you how much pattern creation takes for me, but nothing else. And I started tracking like I would sit down in my office and start tracking. And like I would track how long it took me to get lunch, how long it took me to do something around the house, like everything. And I realized it's crazy the amount of time you waste in things that are not conductive to making profits in your business. So if you're not like tracking this, you're missing out, like because you cannot create a strategy to like, okay, I have to realign this, I have to take this away, and this is not working. And by doing this, I realized I was creating too much like art for the portfolio to license to companies. And this is not even something I'm like actively working on right now. Like I have some licensing deals and I've been working a lot with companies on commissions. But the thing I want to put my energy right now more into is teaching. And I'm like, that's what I thought, but I wasn't putting the time on that. So it's crazy the things you will find if you actually track your time for a month.
It's true, and it actually will help you figure out, like, well, what's your actual focus? So you say you wanna do art licensing, let's say that's what it is, but are you actually pitching your portfolio? I can't tell you how many times, like, I've been there too, I'll be like, "Man, I'm having a dry month. Things aren't happening." And I'm like, well, how many pitches have I actually sent out? Or Okay, for me, full disclosure, I actually have a spoonflower shop. I actually got a sale in it last week, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I forgot I had a spoonflower shop." I completely forgot I had it because I uploaded things once and I had no strategy behind it, and I just was like, "Why not? It's a place." Now, what's your take on this? If you do put your art on a spoonflower or a Society 6, but your intention there is not necessarily to make big bucks there, but for exposure, what do you think about that? Is that a strategy? Yes, no, maybe
Yes,
so?
I think it is. If that's your strategy and you say, oh, I'm going to put it there for exposure because somebody might actually find me, and you know that, then you know how much energy you're going to allocate to that, how much time, and like what your expectations are. So that's like consider like, oh, I was going to spend 2 hours on marketing this day, and that was your marketing. That's your strategy. So it is okay, but everything again, everything has to have an end goal, and everything you do needs to be like pushing you forward towards that goal. So yeah, if that you think is going to make yourself more visible and it's going to be important for what you're wanting to achieve, great. But not because like, oh my god, maybe I can start making money right now. Like I saw some people that make over 6 figures in spoonflower, so I'm going to put up 5 patterns. So yeah, I don't think that's how they made so much money, because they probably spend all day working on that.
It's true. In fact, I'm friends with one of those six-figure earners, Mindy Young. A lot of people know her because she's an amazing educator and she's super great at Spoonflower and teaches people how to actually have strategy if that's what you want in Spoonflower. And she spends a heck of a lot of time in Spoonflower working that so that she can maximize it. And so this actually leads me to a question because another thing I see is, you went from having a job to just going full time. I am open for art business and I have now all the time in the world to grow this business. And that actually leaves like so much time that it can lead to, again, putting your energy in way too many places. And I've actually seen this before where people will kind of follow the path that you were on. They're like, okay, I was working full time. I went for it, Stacie. I quit my job and I'm full time going all in on my art business. And then eventually they're like, feel bad. They're like, I actually needed to go get a part time job and I have less time to work on my business. But then with that less time, they're getting way more done because all of a sudden their priorities shift. And they're like, well, if I only have 5, 10 hours a week to work on my business, where am I going to focus? That's our keyword today, focus so that I can get the most out of this time. So I'd love for you to kind of talk about that and your take on it.
Yes, first of all, I don't think anybody should feel bad if they quit their job and now they're like realizing they need a part-time job. This is a job that has been also sold a lot like a dream, because it is a dream. Like, and you can make a pattern and then it be licensed to 2 and 3 companies and get royalties from it. But it's also something that takes time to build. So if in that time you don't have money and you have to take a part-time job, then you don't have to be ashamed of that. And then you have to be super organized. So as you were saying, Stacie, yeah, now this 8 hour luxury day that you had to create some patterns and like, oh, maybe you're doing this and then you were looking online and stuff like that changes completely. And now you're like, oh my God, I only have 3 hours every day to work on this. So I have to create one pattern and I have to upload it to Spoonflower. Let's say that's your focus. Or I need to submit this to a company. So you're obviously more focused and you're like pumping things out faster.
I think that it really does matter where we put our time and energy. That's what's going to grow. And sometimes, whenever we have 40 hours a week, we're like, well, that gives me way more revenue streams to explore. And, I love a good revenue stream. I got a bunch of them, but I didn't build them all up at once. I built them up over years and years and years. And so I want to make sure I'm being clear. I am not vilifying anyone having multiple income streams, but I think, especially for those people early on, defining their goals and their focus, it's so important so that you can actually see that forward motion and some reward for the risk that you took, right?
Yes, I think you need to have multiple income streams. It's something that is going to protect you, because putting all your eggs in one basket, like it's risky, and like the economy is shifting and everything. So like having multiple income streams just protects you from, if one fails, then you have a backup. But I think you need to start like building baby steps and like building solid foundations for that. and start with one or two things you're doing and focus on that, grow it. Once that's grown, like you know how that works, you have all the knowledge, you like it kind of runs in automatic, obviously not because as entrepreneurs like we have to do everything basically, but you know how it goes. So now you can start focusing on something else, putting more time, more energy, more money on that, because also like the economic part, like the money part, if you start to invest in all of these business at once, then like it's really hard, especially if you're starting out and you don't have money or you have just a little bit of savings. So I think,
Yeah.
yeah, building one solid stream and then like growing to another one and then another one, like there's no cap on how many you want to have, but you want to make sure you're building a solid foundation.
Absolutely. So let's go back to you with your focus. You went from all the products to one product to a move that forced you to change your entire focus. And now, when you're talking about like, where am I spending my time? I said I want to grow my education platform, but am I actually spending time there? Where does that leave us now for you and where you're at? And how would you advise someone who's kind of a few steps behind you to keep going? Like, what would your advice to them be?
Yes, well, I've tried many things. I've failed at things. Like failure doesn't mean you're bad or you don't know what you're doing. Well, probably a bit you don't know what you're doing. You're experimenting, but it's not a bad thing. Like from the failures, you learn something and you have to come back and be strong. You need to be strong in this business and resilient. And it's it's kind of such a fairy tale business because it's making art, which is something like fun and like to me magical. You're creating things that are in your mind and you're bringing them to the world. So it's kind of a fairy tale business, but you need to have in the back of your mind that it is a business.
Yeah.
It runs the same way as a bank. Like it runs the same way as somebody selling shoes. It's a business. So to me, it's determine what you want to do, determine what like your version of success is, because you might want a like seven-figure dollar company and you might want to have employees and you might want to be like the next huge thing and brand and be everywhere in the world, or that might not be the thing for you, so you can't compare yourself to these other people. So determine what you really want to achieve, what's like your version of success, and then think, for these I need to reach these goals, and start with one and start building back from that, like what steps do I need to follow to reach those goals, and focus on that. And if along the line you figure out you made a mistake, you chose something that wasn't for you, then you can just pivot. But don't be scared to try things. Again, like figure out what you want to do so you can focus on that.
So here's a burning question in my brain. What'd you do with all that product that you had that you weren't selling? Did you donate it? What did you do with it? Just going back.
Oh my God. If you go to my mom's house in Colombia, I still have like products that she hoards because this is what everybody gets for gifts. Like for this has been like this was like 2014 that I moved to Canada. And there's still things like you go to my dad's house, he has pillows. If you go to my uncle's house, he has pillows. Like my whole family has a bunch of things. Like my friends got stuff. I donated a bunch of stuff. And my mom has her personal stash of, oh, I love this brand and this one and this one. So she has like 100 cosmetic pouches because she loves them all. And I bring some to Canada, I give them as gifts. And yeah, that was like money that was wasted, but I feel like it was education. So
Well, that happens. In fact, once I'm going to tell a quick story because I've done a lot of products, like we mentioned. I had a calendar that I could not sell at all. It was a perpetual calendar, so it wasn't dated. And I was like, this is great. I can sell this calendar. And we're talking years and years of them sitting on my shelf. So finally, and keep in mind before anyone comes at me, my was renting a place that did not have a recycling area. We only had a regular trash can. Okay. So before you say, Stacie, you should have recycled. I know. And now we have recycling set up. I know someone will say something, but we had to put all the calendars in the dumpster. We did. It
oh
had been
no.
like 3 years. Turns out there's someone in town who runs a YouTube channel where they dumpster dive and take inventory from places and they resell it on eBay. So I started getting traffic from this YouTube channel. And it was this guy. He's like, I dumpster dove behind this business called Ginger ginger bear, ginger. But look at all these calendars. And they're retailing for this. They just threw away like $10,000 worth of inventory if you go at the retail price. And so they were reselling them on eBay. I don't know if they ever actually sold because I couldn't sell them. God, I hope for them they did, but it was really funny to me because instead of them being in like my mother's closet back home, this chap probably has been trying to sell them from his YouTube channel for a while. So yeah, sometimes when we have things that we don't sell, we just eat the cost and learn from it. And it's true. People really struggle with feeling like there's the sunk cost that people put into things being like, oh my gosh, I've invested in this thing, so I can't change my focus because I invested time and money into this thing and maybe a course, and I have to go down with the ship because I have committed to this. So when is it okay to change your focus if that's your mentality?
Yeah, well, I think you need to try things because you can't also just like, oh, I tried this for a month and it didn't work. Like you need to know you gave it your all, you gave it time. Like again, like for very little people, this business makes you a superstar from like 1 week to the next. Like some people like start and I'm like, oh my God, I got a license. Like lucky and it happens. But most people, it's a path. So if you know you gave it your all, you gave it a chance, you gave it time, you marketed everything, and you see that it's not working, it's not selling, it's not picking up, then you have to change something. And it can be a small thing. Like for me, for example, I was manufacturing products. I didn't say like, oh, manufacturing products doesn't work. Bye, I'm going to go do like book illustrations. It could just be a little shift, or it could mean that, yeah, like this is not the market for you. So you need to assess also like, if you keep making cute kids illustrations and you're going to these, I don't know, craft shows or that are like high end design products, and you're like, oh, I'm not selling anything. This is not for me. Like maybe you're just mistaken and like you're putting your focus on a different market. That's not what you should be doing. So you have to really assess, like, have you given it your all? Have you focused on, like, have you given it a true opportunity? And then like, do I shift something or do I just try something else and eat up the cost, the energy? Like even with patterns, some people like create a whole portfolio of patterns that doesn't cost money because it's just basically time. But even that time and energy you've allocated to that, like makes you so attached to them. And sometimes just with a shift of color palette or like making like a little shift in your art, adding more detail or less detail or changing your medium will change everything. So it's impossible to give a formula, but I think you need to assess objectively everything and be open to shifting.
Open to shifting. And that's what you do. If you are an entrepreneur and you're going to grow a business, like you've got to be open to shifting because that's just, we're living in a world where things move fast and we move right along with it and we adapt. And that's what you've done during your career. And that's what I've done. And I'm the better for it. And I'm sure you are too. Well, Sandra, thanks so much for coming on today and sharing your experience about focus and having to shift. And where can people find you if they want to learn more about you and how you help artists with their careers?
Yes, so you can go to my website, which is art by Sandra Mejia, MEJIA.com. And I have everything there, my classes, my mentorship. I'll actually be launching something very soon about how to like find focus, which is why this like interview like is perfect. I have everything clear in my mind because I've been recording lately. So yeah, just join me. I have a newsletter that sends creative briefs every month for free, and I have free Procreate brushes, and I just love growing the community and interacting with artists and helping everybody grow and share what I have learned, because as I was self-taught, I want to share everything I've been learning, so maybe I can make somebody's path less painful.
Ooh, and that's the goal. A less painful path, happy artists, beautiful work everywhere. Well, Sandra, thanks so much for being here. And everybody, thanks for listening to this episode of Art Plus Audience. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for tuning in. Hey, could you do me a favor? Could you subscribe to this podcast and then share it with one of your best art friends? I'd really appreciate it. And then head on over to Instagram and follow me at the Leverage Your Art account. And you can keep up with all of our future episodes. Thank you so much for your support. It means everything to have you here listening and learning. Bye.